Hello and welcome to our Coffee and Cloud Series live event. This month's topic is penetration testing, what and why. I'm Alan Falcon, CEO of Cumulus Global, and I want to take this moment to welcome you here to this event. As you know, our Coffee and Cloud series, we do them right now approximately once every other month on very pointed topics. We try and get you in and out of here, give you some useful information, let you be on your way on what's hopefully a nice Friday afternoon for you. Or it could be later in the evening or another time of the week if you're watching us not live but on recording. So before we get into the content of this session, which should run 10 to 15 minutes, we have time for Q&A as well. There's a couple of housekeeping items. First is, as I always like to remind folks, the audio is muted, so we don't get any background noise interfering with the session today. So if at any point in time you have a question or a comment you want to share, along the right or top side of your screen, there's an icon. One of them opens a questions window. That's the best way to do it. It alerts me and lets me track to make sure I've got your questions answered before we wrap up before the end of the day or end of the session. This session is with all our web events is being recorded. We generally get things posted within 24 hours. We'll send you an email with the link. Feel free to share. And this Coffee and Cloud series is one of many resources you can read, watch, or explore in our resource center. Our goal here is to provide you current and ongoing information, relevant clouds around cloud services and managed cloud services, security, other IT issues facing small and mid-sized businesses, government agencies or local governments, and K-12 school systems. So please check that out at your convenience. But today we're here to talk about penetration testing, also known as pen testing, and start out with its what and why. So what is it? Very simply, a penetration test is any simulated cyber attack on a computer system to identify vulnerabilities and test the security of IT systems. When we talk about testing the security of IT systems, most people think this is only electronic. Part of your IT systems, your IT ecosystem is probably a better way to phrase it, is the people involved. So we'll talk about how people testing comes into play. And for many businesses, physical security testing may also be seen as part of that ecosystem. So what is a penetration test? We know we have the definition. What does it look like? Well, there are many different types of penetration tests, often referred to as different vectors. When most people think of historical penetration tests, they're thinking of external. Can someone out on the internet reach your network, and can they find a way in? Can they find their way in through your firewall, in through your router, onto your network, maybe into a server? External testing has expanded in recent years, given the nature of cyber attacks, to say, hey, is there another way for someone to get into your services from the outside? Do you have a coding error in your website that would let someone gain access to your website? And does your website share data with your internal systems? Is that a way in? We might recall several years ago, there was a large data breach at Target. There was an external attack on devices being used to monitor the coolers in the refrigerated section of the store that were connected to the store network that gave someone access eventually to the cash register system and the fiscal management system for the store. And so all of that comes into play. But there are other vectors as well. For penetration testing, there's internal vectors, which basically say, hey, if someone gets onto a device or can get into a user account on your network, and that device, by the way, can be a server, it can be a workstation, it could be a network switch, or if they can actually get a compromised identity for one of your employees and get into the system, what damage can they do? What can they see? What do they have access to? What data can they exfiltrate? Can they take away from you? What data can they delete? What data can they encrypt? That's where the risks are. Other vectors are for specific systems and services. Are your individual applications secure? Whether they run in your computer room, whether they run in the cloud, can someone get in if an identity is compromised? Are your identity and access management systems secure? You might just be using what used to be known as Active Directory. Now it's Entra ID in the Microsoft Cloud world, for example. Or you could be using Google Cloud Identity or an SSO tool like Okta or Duo Management. How secure is that? Can you make sure you know who everyone is and that they only have access to the right things? And again, that can be external and internal. And so internally, you can say, gee, So this person has access, but can they access things they're not supposed to? And that's where you sort of straddle a line between access management and even getting into permissions as far as what an account that might be compromised can and should have access to internally. We mentioned earlier that it's not just the physical things that are part of your IT system. You can't have a secure IT system unless your people understand security, at least enough to know when something's suspicious or behaviors they shouldn't do. So one pen testing vector is your personnel, and that's often in the form of security awareness training, which should include periodic testing. This is where we send the fake phishing emails and we find out who clicks. For those who click, they get some education to say, hey, this is why you shouldn't have clicked the link in this email, and just constantly, not overwhelmingly, but consistently remind them of what to look for and why it's dangerous to click on things that aren't secure. And then, of course, there can be issues around physical security as well, and you want to make sure people can't, depending on your industry, can't violate those physical security parameters in addition to the electronic ones. So why pen test? Some pen testing, full pen testing programs can get expensive. Why do it? A couple of key reasons. First and foremost, you're going to find vulnerabilities. You will see the weaknesses in your systems, in your security footprint, in your security tools and services, and your policies and procedures. And that, when you hire someone and bring someone in to do penetration testing, the feedback and information you're getting is unbiased. They're looking at your risk in terms of the size of your business, the nature of the business, its location, the industry in, and often, without any internal bias as to how you feel you might be secure or think you might be secure. So this information comes in. And I will warn you that initial penetration tests will present you with an overwhelming sense of dread. And it's not, maybe it's intentional, but it's really not intentional. It's really saying, hey, here's your baseline, and here's all of the risks. And we'll talk about, man, if you get that many risks or vulnerabilities, what do you do? Do you have to fix them all? We'll deal with that in just a few moments. Another reason to pen test, however, is that when you look at those risks, you can prioritize and then take actions to reduce them. And so the data you get out of a pen test is really good at guiding security changes and how you're going to spend money if you need to spend money. Not all security fixes cost money, by the way, but if you need to spend money, how and where are you going to send those? What are your priorities, and gives you the chance to correct weaknesses and prevent breaches. Okay, and so for example, we often talk about multi-factor authentication, right? You might have a weakness that allows someone to, or that's enabled someone to compromise a username and password, but if you have multi-factor authentication in place properly, you can prevent a breach even if that identity has been compromised, right? So that's how you apply the multiple layers. Certainly, if you do pen testing, you will improve your cyber insurance coverage, and I will also say premiums. Cyber insurance companies love to see penetration tests. Depending on the nature of your business and the size and the industry you're in, they might prefer that you do it quarterly, but be happy if it's semi-annual or even annual. Some industries, they may actually require, they will say, hey, we will give you this coverage at this rate if you produce a penetration test at least quarterly and can demonstrate you're taking actions to address the most critical or the most common issues that you might come up with. And finally, penetration tests help you comply with regulations. One thing that's great about modern penetration testing is they can benchmark the results that align with industry and regulatory standards. So they can look and say, hey, oh, you're a medical office, you need to be HIPAA and high-tech compliant. We understand the requirements, so as we penetrate test your environment, we're going to see if we can violate any of those requirements. And if we can't, you're good. And if we can't, we're going to show you that weakness. You can plug that hole and move forward. So it's a great tool for complying with regulations as well. The scope of the pen test can vary. There are multiple levels. Our basic level is level 1. It's an overview. It's a basic probe externally. Can we connect to your firewall that protects your physical environment if you have one? Can we connect individual machines that might be connected directly to the internet? Can we find them? Are there any open ports, communication ports that shouldn't be there that we might be able to exploit? And we do a sample number of workstations for an internal, it's known what we would call a land and expand analysis, which is we install a temporary agent on a few of your individual computers, laptops, desktops, for example. And from there, let's say, hey, if someone got into this computer without an identity or with an identity of the person who uses it, here's the information they have access to, and here's the damage they can do. And that sort of lets you get a sense of what your risk is should you have a successful breach or a successful identity compromise. And it's a good starting point because it provides a baseline and it'll provide an initial set of actions. A level 3 is much more comprehensive. It's 2 steps up. We probe externally across multiple vectors. The internal land and expand is servers and workstations. It really is going to baseline against zero trust, meaning no one should be able to do anything that they shouldn't do. We're going to highlight everything that can and could go wrong. And it can also do some API access and testing so that if systems are talking to each other, could someone hacking in follow those connections through to get to more sensitive data? Now, in between the two or in conjunction with the two, there might be targeted testing. For example, there's specific penetration testing to see if your Entra ID, formerly Active Directory configuration is wrong, or if you're using SSO, remote access, VPN tools and environments. You may have specific applications. Hey, is your HubSpot secure? Is your manufacturing line of business system secure? And again, because human factor is such an issue in security, even in small businesses, do you have security awareness testing as part of your security awareness training going on? If not, we're going to do some security awareness testing and see how many of your employees are going to click even though their gut says maybe I shouldn't. Additionally, you can scope pen testings to specifically benchmark your results against NIST, CIS, or the ISO frameworks if your business is starting to use those for security compliance. If you have government standards, whether you deal with the federal or state government and they're requiring FedRAMP, or you need to be HIPAA compliant or SEC compliant based on your industry, FERPA in the education market, as well as industry standards for credit cards, SOC, FINRA, et cetera. And so the scope of the pen test can really be expanded or narrowed to your need as a business, your size, your industry, things of that nature. And that's important to know. So there's different ways to use penetration tests. When you use a pen test, we recommend doing a one-time scan. For most companies, we say our level 1 scan is going to be good. We deal mostly with small and mid-sized businesses, so it's very appropriate for that. So a one-time scan is going to give you a point-in-time analysis. It's going to give you a baseline assessment. We'll come back with some recommendations on what to fix now and prioritize that so you can decide what you need to fix over time. If you're looking at cyber insurance, if you're in an industry that expects it, if you have customers, if you're a small business selling to a big business and they're trying to make sure their supply chain is secure, you might have a customer that's going to ask you about penetration testing. If that's the case, we can set up periodic scans. Our typical entry into periodic scanning service is, a higher level scan monthly and a deep scan once a quarter. And we do that just for a monthly fee on an annual contract. But there are other options. Your industry, the size of your business, maybe you really only need that deep scan every 6 months. What do those periodic scans do? They demonstrate that as you get the scan and you make some changes, you're improving your protection and reducing your risks. You'll identify new risks and vulnerabilities as the security landscape and the nature of attacks change over time. And you'll be able to monitor your risk levels to guide future security changes. Again, this will help you decide when, where, and how much money you need to spend and what non-monetary actions you can take to maintain and continuously improve your security. And we'll note that when it comes to cyber insurance policy, what we're seeing now in the market is that cyber insurance carriers want to see, and they prefer that you have periodic penetration testing. Depending on your industry, they may not require it, but for some industries, they will. And so you get this data, and one of the questions is, well, what do you fix? And the first thing is not everything. Particularly small and mid-sized businesses, you can't afford, and it's not practical to fix every single risk. Okay, so the process of deciding what you fix needs to be interactive and ongoing over time. And we take really 2 angles of approach. From a risk-based approach, what types of attacks or risks are high probability that they'll be exploited or high probability types of attacks, and what attacks have the highest impact on your business. So for many of our small business clients, the highest probability is some sort of data ransom, a cyber, a crypto, encryption attack, with the ransomware that comes with it. That's still one of the highest probability types of attack. Phishing attacks now, and the highest impact attacks are becoming more even prevalent, but the highest impact attack that we see in our customer base is business email compromise, where someone gets into your system and they're editing emails and your customers are sending payment to them and to the scammers and not to you, or you're getting scammed and wiring money to someone you shouldn't be, or you think you're wiring money to a vendor, but it's actually going to the attackers, right? So in our view, if you look at both the high probability types of attacks and the highest impact types of attack and hit from those angles, you'll do a lot to improve your security footprint. There's also the feasibility. Some security fixes are simple, some are inexpensive, others are complex or more expensive. And so you can balance those as well. Oftentimes, companies look at these reports and they go after the complex problems, not realizing, that for the effort to do one complex problem that may not be as high a risk and could be very expensive, there are many, many simple and inexpensive steps they can take and things they can do that overall would improve their security footprint more than going after that one complexity. And so sometimes attackers use the simplest attacks because they know that people are protecting themselves against the more complex attacks. And so there's always a balance there. So what are your next steps? The first thing to do is to assess your needs. We offer this one-time level 1 pen test, and we have some additional security assessments. For small businesses, we offer a rapid security assessment that looks at some of the core tenets of your cybersecurity. We look at what's in place, what's not. We make some phased recommendations. We also have a cyber insurance readiness assessment that looks at your business in terms of your size and your industry and identifies the risks and sort of, how ready would you be to go apply for cyber insurance? If you're interested in any of those, contact us. The information's on the screen. You can request a referral code, and we're offering a number of each of these assessments for free. You're welcome to take advantage of that. You get the results back from the assessment. We're going to help you plan your solution, review the results, prioritize actions, put a budget to it, and then you get to decide when and how and why you spend the money. And when you're ready to execute, we'll help you plan those investments and deploy those solutions. And so our contact information, if you want more information, is on the phone. This pretty much wraps up. Don't have any questions now, but in the questions window yet. But if you have any questions, please open up that window and ask away. For those watching live, I'm going to say so long to the folks. Before we get into the deep Q&A, I'm going to say so long to the folks who are watching the recording. I'm going to halt the recording of the session at this point. So I want to thank those for watching the recording, taking time out of your busy day to join us. Again, please contact us if you'd like more information, if you'd like to take advantage of the free testing and assessment offers. We're happy to help. And actually, you can use bit.ly/CG intro call to access through the website, or use the QR code on the screen. Info@Cumulus Global gets to our team as well. The phone number's there. If you want to reach me personally, don't call. I'm not good at answering the phone. I'm horrible about voicemails. Definitely use my email address. I don't have an assistant. I will get back to you, or I will have a member of my team get back to you if I can't answer you immediately or very quickly. So we'll have that. So thanks everyone for joining us. Appreciate it, and have a great day.